Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It is brought to you by the Fanatics Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. And, of course, Adam Caplan's here on a Tuesday for today's edition of Football at 4 on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. A lot of conversation about the Eagles' issues offensively. We had Kevin Batula on earlier in the press conference. He was asked that very question about the lack of offense in the second half. What went wrong in the second half against Tampa from your perspective was the opening question today, and obviously a lot of people trying to figure that out, Adam Caplan. What went wrong with the offense in the first half against the Rams, and then in the second half against the Buccaneers? Do we have trends? What are we seeing with the issues of the Eagles' offense?
Yeah, Mike, it's definitely weird. It's definitely strange. No, it's not like 2023. People are kind of funny because I think what happens is, Mike, and sometimes the media is part of it, like they just feel like they have to say something when something is different. Oh, well, I got 2023 vibes. Well, first of all, Vic Fangio is a defense coordinator. Okay, well, we just talk about the differences. And the passing game was different. Hurts was very aggressive because he was coming off the 22 season, where he was not only one of the top two quarterbacks in the NFL, he was really good. I mean, he unfortunately got hurt. He had the knee injury, but, he could have been the MVP. So things changed for him, in 23, throwing the ball over. Now he's not as aggressive as a thrower most of the time. But, Mike, in the first half, and this is part of our discussion today, is that he was so on time with the football. This has been an issue for him throughout his career is, look, he knows what the play is. He doesn't like what he sees. He goes to another pass target, another progression, and he's late. That does happen sometimes. Not the only quarterback to do it. Patrick Mahomes does it. We've talked about this before. When Andy Reid doesn't like when Mahomes holds the football, he calls for shorter drops, a 3-step drop, and he makes sure that Mahomes gets rid of the football. So I love how Hurts in the first half was getting rid of the football on time. And by the way, and another thing that I really liked about Patullo, I criticize him heavily for being too run dependent on first down. Against Kansas City, Mike, on non-short yardage plays, including the push play, they ran the ball over 80% of the time on first down. Like, that's so predictable and not what you should be doing. Well, the first half, they came out throwing the ball a lot on first down. I loved it. It worked. Second half, Mike, as we transitioned to the second half of the game last week, started to run the ball more on first down. You saw they got stuffed immediately. The Bucs dropped off. They were basically dropped. They were basically playing coverage-based defense with some simulated pressure, but they stopped blitzing because Hurts beat him with a blitz, which was beautiful. He got him with a blitz, and it looked so good. And then they kind of dialed things back a little bit. And then when they threw it, it was more deep sideline. Hurts was off a little bit. Well, a couple of them were a little bit late. Now, I know some fans are conflating, it was after he got hit hard, he wasn't the same quarterback. We've seen that a lot on our YouTube message or our comments. And, look, he was not diagnosed with a concussion in the game. We'll see what the injury report looks like tomorrow. But he certainly didn't look the same. It's hard to go 0 for 8 and not throw for any yards in the second half. But certainly things have to move this along, Mike. Things have to be better. My opening statement would be both the coordinator and the quarterback, not just the coordinator or not just the quarterback. They've got to get more in sync, and the OC's got to help them a little bit more.
Yeah, so, it's a tale of two halves in both of these games. And we've seen, I guess the one game was the first half. This game was the second half, but they got a lead.
Yeah.
They got an 18-point lead. Mm-hmm. And how much did that play into their first half passing versus their second half passing? In other words, we're not going to take chances because you got to score 3 times against our defense, and we don't see that happening.
So, all right, let me kind of respond to what I've been told on when you should start running the ball or transition to a run game. Not in the third quarter, unless you're up by 24 points or more, which means 4 scores, three touchdowns, and a field goal. Fourth quarter, more than 17 points, 2 touchdowns and a field goal, and whatever else. That means you need to have 4 possessions that you're giving up points. So, now, again, I thought they got a little conservative, transition a little bit more to the run game, trying to be more balanced maybe, but really certainly to the run game. And that's good. And we'll get into the run game, which I look, anyone with a brain would have said there's 0 chance that Barkley would have come close to 2,000 yards again, but I didn't see this. I'm raising my hand, Mike. I didn't see this. This is hard to believe how bad the running game is. And we're going to go into the reasons, Mike, but it's not a Patullo problem. It's a player problem, particularly in the interior. We'll get into that. Stalin's not a problem, but he's got to do the best he can. But, Mike, I don't know that these run game problems are going to be fixed anytime soon.
All right, talk with Adam Caplan here on the Sports Bash. Yes, the running game struggles. Is that happening because of design, or is it personnel on the offensive line?
Personnel on the offensive line that's not playing like we're accustomed to. Cam Jurgens, clearly not himself, Mike. On the Inside the Tape show, Greg Cosell, we've asked Greg multiple times, hey, what are you seeing? And he's pointed multiple times to Jurgens and Dickerson not playing like we're used to. It's not bad, but they're just not. It's not quite what we're used to seeing. Now, Patullo said it. A couple of Mailata said it. There have been a play here or there where they're just missing it a little bit. Where last year their timing would have been better with the offensive line, would have been more in sync. So I think that's legitimate. But Mike, it's still when Barkley's running for well less than 4 yards a carry through 4 games, it's not 1 and 2. That's a problem. I know they face some good defenses, but that wasn't a problem last year. And just so folks know, because it's totally false against stacked boxes. I've never talked to a coordinator in 27 years that oh my God, we can't run against an 8-man box. It's the way that you adjust your offensive line and how your personnel grouping. So it's totally false. You can run against stacked boxes. It's not easy, but you can do it. Just for the record, every coach I've talked to over the years has told me the same thing. Oh, we can do it. It's how we do it formationally to beat that stacked box.
Well, obviously, they won the game. They are 4-0. There has to be some positives from that game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And what would some of those things be in your estimation?
Mike, look, they're unbelievable in the red zone. It's funny. They don't get a lot of chances down there, but they're phenomenal in there. So you got to point that out. They're great in the red zone. Hurts was like, see, it's really interesting. His first half of this game against the Bucs, it wasn't like 2022 because that was more of a downfield passing offense, whereas it was protected really well. And Hurts was like, this ball's coming out. I love throwing the deep ball, where he looked like it was kind of like that Steelers game, which I pointed to many times, so the ball would come out quickly, and he was in rhythm. He was going through more than one progression. It was phenomenal. I was like, wow, we haven't seen this with him getting the ball quickly. We already talked about what happened the second half, but and also Patullo brought out so many different things. The variety of the short yardage plays, push plays, how he did it. The shovel pass to Goddard, which, by the way, is in every NFL playbook. It's just when you bring it out. I love that on the push play, they just decided to hand it off. Like, we've been waiting for that, and they've done it. So I thought Patullo was great. Look, Mike, one thing, and I don't know Patullo personally, and I'm not protecting the guy, but I just want fans to understand. A portion of the fan base wanted Michael Clay fired multiple times, okay? Now, I know Michael's struggling a little bit. Nick Sirianni, to his credit, gave him time to – he's a young guy, by one of the youngest coordinators in the NFL of any position, and he gave him his time to progress and learn as a coordinator. Fans want – I'm not joking. I tell this on our YouTube boards. They wanted Kevin Patullo fired after 2 weeks. Fired after 2 weeks. I know these fans are spoiled. They're used to great football, but this is just insane. I've had my criticism of Patullo. Sometimes I've been, man, I'm really going after this guy when I think it's bad or not good enough. But I also realize, for covering this business for a long time, you can't just fire a guy every week. This is unfortunate. This goes on with every fan base, Mike. It's not exclusive to the Eagles.
No doubt. And I agree. I think, he's got to grow into this. But not only this position, his personnel. He got asked an interesting question today that was about, like, how do you run an offense when you have so many star players on your offense? He's like, it's a good problem to have too many stars, but it's also something that's tough to kind of, step right into when it's your first chance of how I get the ball distributed to all these different guys. And you talk about, the diversification in the first half. Yeah. They pulled out a couple of new things, yet the numbers weren't all that great when you look at A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Yeah. Obviously, Saquon Barkley's getting off to a slow start. So he's going to have to grow into this role and he's doing it on the fly, and he's winning on the fly. But we'll see where this goes, because obviously you have the A.J. Brown stuff kind of looming and lingering now over his head. How much – he had 9 targets this week. He had 10 last week. He had 10 last week. He had over 100 yards. This week he had 9. He only had, 7 yards.
Yeah, but you got to give him the ball early, Mike. That's one of my, I have 5 or 6 criticisms of Patullo, which were very legit because it's come from some NFL people that watch Eagles tape. You got that guy, and I know Kevin talked about it today, about we know our number one guy is going to be A.J. Brown, but okay, even if Hurts is late, there are ways to get him the football early on shorter routes. They throw a lot to the sidelines. Hurts loves that throw. And by the way, you could throw it. Look, despite the narrative, which is mostly true, Hurts doesn't like throwing it inside the numbers. They hit Goddard inside the numbers. They hit A.J. Brown on a quick slant. Where the quick slants, he cannot be covered on that because of his physicality, because how big he is physically in terms of his build.
Yeah,
we need to. That's on Patullo. That is not on Hurts.
Well. That's the play where that's the play where I think they were talking about that during this last night during the Monday night game is if you have a running play that keeps working, you run it again and again.
Right.
That inside slant, you should keep running until they find a way to stop you.
Yes. Mike, we talked about this in year 1 with the bang 8. That's the play that we first brought it up in 22 with A.J. Brown. This is before anyone ever heard of it. So I asked Greg Cosell, I said, hey, I heard from the Titans. This is what do you call this play? This quick slant it's called the bang 8. That's a staple of the Titans. I'm like, well, this is coming, and it was to a certain extent, and then kind of disappeared. I know Hurts' preference is to throw it outside the numbers, but it's a quick read. You know what the play is. I'm telling you, Brown cannot be covered on that play.
I agree.
That's impossible.
Agree wholeheartedly with that, Adam Caplan. Couple quickies before you get out of here. You've got today, Vic Fangio was talking about Makuba. It looks like he's the starter there. He said Mitchell played the best game that he thought he ever played. He also said he thought Ringo, it's possible that he could be the full-time starter. He thought that he played really well.
Yeah, this is interesting that he barely got targeted. So 2 people told me that. What was not surprising, but Vic actually, he didn't describe it. I know what he meant because it was explained to me privately. Sticking coverage means you're on your man. For the most part, he didn't get beat. I know the ball didn't go to him, but it could have, and that's the point. We try to explain to people. I know his tackling wasn't good. We weren't talking about that on our postgame show. That had no relevance to what we were talking about. That's another part of the corners have to tackle the run game. That's got its own importance. The number one criteria evaluating a corner is how he covers, okay? No one who works in the NFL will tell you differently. No, you got to be able to tackle. Ringo's tackling, he took poor angles. That's got to be better. That will always be pointed out by your defensive backs coaches. But the number one criteria is coverage. You'll see on the Inside the Tape show with the defensive one, which I think drops tomorrow. We talk about this, Mike, with Ringo. We actually show the play where he did a good job. He was aggressive. Now, one thing that I have an issue with is, depending on who's grading it, is how many times they held. A couple got called, a bunch did not get called. The defensive backs. Ringo, Mitchell had a great game, but you got to be careful. That
Mitchell's awful. Mitchell's awful grabby.
He is, but you know what? There's a saying in the NFL: if it wasn't called, it was a penalty. It's comical, but coaches say that. It's actually funny. I've got that from coaches over the years, but they know they can't do that. One was so egregious. I couldn't imagine being a Buck fan. I would have thrown a shoe at the TV, but you know what? They didn't call it. The Eagles have studs, man, in terms of Mitchell and
Cooper. And Cooper's an awesome tackler.
You know what?
They tackle, man. They tackle.
He is. But Makuba, I know he does give up a play every now and then. You gotta go through the growing pains of a rookie. He's a really good football player. Howie, I'll tell you what, he is really getting these. He's getting right in the draft. He really is. Howie Roseman has turned around his career. He's not the best drafter. Les Snead of the Rams is one of the best, but Howie's top 5 now in terms of games started by draftees, production, and tape. I'm telling you, he's really good at it.
All right. Well, of course, the Eagles play the Broncos, who we saw last night. You can listen to that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Adam's back on Friday to give us some more insight on the Denver Broncos, a playoff team from a year ago. That will be the fourth straight playoff team the Eagles will face.
Wow.
And, of course, that will be right here at Lincoln Financial Field. All right, Adam. Thanks, man.
Thank you.